So we're heading into the final stretch of the class, and I'm making this video to introduce the final 3 assignments for you. And I'm doing it a little differently than I've done most of the videos throughout the semester, and that is I'm just sitting here in relatively good lighting outside in my backyard, and I'm holding my phone, my iPhone, and recording this video just kind of like as a selfie. So you'll see it's jiggling more than it usually does for the videos for this class. And I'm doing this on purpose because one of the assignments in this final stretch is going to ask you to create your own video and upload it to a YouTube channel that you create. And the video is going to reflect you telling a story that you would tell to your class, either your current or your future class, that relates to a new learning experience that you are going to be implementing with them. So it's going to be part of the introduction to the new learning experience. So that's one of the projects, and I'm going to be modeling that for you here storytelling-wise in just a moment. You're also going to be doing some investigations regarding what professional development options you might choose as a teacher to continue learning more and improving your practice. And finally, there is some reflection readings and some reflections that I'm going to ask you to do as the final project for the class. So it's 3 things, and I'm presenting them all to you now so that if you have some more time comes up between now and the end of the final due date for all projects, which is Monday, December 9th at midnight. But if you have more time, you'll be able to get them done, complete them in a timeline that's really good for you between now and then. So this is going to be it as far as the course projects go. And as I mentioned, I'm going to be demonstrating for you one of the things I'm asking you to do, which is storytelling. And I've provided as some support resources for you in the course website. I've provided some information about storytelling. And I also there's a support document that you can print off as you sketch out the story that you're going to be telling. It'll be very helpful, and that's what I use to prepare this storytelling video. I just kind of went through the points and thought about what story I wanted to tell, and just made sure that I sort of included the principles of good storytelling. So that is what we have going on again, between now and the end of the semester. And so I'm going to tell a story now that I'm going to be using to introduce the storytelling. And I'm asking you to do the same thing in terms of shooting a video and posting it when you tell your story. And you don't even have to edit it. If you make mistakes or you have to write down notes about what you're going to say, which I have done myself, then that's absolutely fine. And you can look down at your notes. It doesn't have to be perfect. Now, because I have a lot of specific things that I need to communicate to you beyond my storytelling sample, I am going to lightly edit this video by just cutting out the times when I'm looking down at my notes and thinking. You can choose to do that, or you can or not. You can just look down. That is okay with me. I just want to see you do 2 things with it, and one is to tell a good story using the principles, and then the other one is just to be able to technically transfer the video into your YouTube channel, and so that I can see that it's there under your professional development place. And by the way, I'm just using my iPhone, camera and the iPhone software that just comes up when you click on the camera icon. you can use whatever you're comfortable with. If you've done TikToks, for example, you could just post this to your TikTok and then download the video or the link to the video and put that up in your YouTube channel or embed it on the project page. Okay, so that's the technical stuff. Let me get to the modeling now. My story is actually about storytelling, and when I thought about the topic of storytelling, I thought about one instance when I was a sophomore in high school, and it was probably the most important storytelling event that I ever really had, and so that's the story that I want to convey. When I started my sophomore year in high school, it was kind of a dark time for me. I went to a small private Catholic grade school all the way up through 8th grade. And when I went to high school, public high school, after 8th grade, it was a giant school. It had about 2,400 students. And I spent kind of my whole freshman year sort of, it seemed to me, kind of keeping my head down, avoiding the bullies that seemed to all end up in my PE class, and really not getting involved in anything, just trying to keep up with academics, and honestly getting out earlier than I was used to, all of that. So I didn't really have I wasn't having a great school experience, and I was kind of a late bloomer in a lot of ways. I was one of those freshmen that you look at and think, wow, you look so young. I can't believe you're in high school. Now, I was definitely one of those. So it was kind of a dark time. And when I started my sophomore year, though, it turned out that I was just enrolled in regular classes when I was a freshman, but it turned out that I really excelled in my English class. And so my English teacher recommended me for honors English, which is something I never even heard of, but it sounded interesting. So I had that class, and at the very beginning of the school year, I went into that class, and it was so different from all the other classes that I had taken because the students were so different. They were quiet, they were attentive, everything was in rows, and it was just a strange experience. And one of the very first assignments that we got from our teacher was that we had to get up and give about a 5-minute speech, a personal speech about ourselves. And my teacher had listed some of the things on the board that she wanted to make sure that we covered in our sort of speech to the class. And I'll read to you what some of those were. Some of the recommended points included where you were born, kind of what your family structure is, number of siblings and that sort of thing, where you went to grade school, what some of your favorites were, your school subject, TV shows, movies, and also what extracurricular activities that you were involved in. So, as you might guess, getting up in front of the class is a pretty nerve-wracking thing to do, especially at the beginning of the semester, and when you don't know anybody in the class, which I knew nobody. So I was pretty nervous about it. But luckily for me, my teacher was having us present in alphabetical order. So, and my last name being Sherman, I was near the end of the list. So when it was time to give presentations, I was lucky because for the first day, we went through maybe 10 students in the class, and I just got to watch them. And what I noticed in that first day of presenting was that the students, everybody seemed to be doing it exactly the same way. They got up and they had note cards. Every single one of them had note cards, and they sort of went down the line of the points that the teacher recommended that they make. And it was just a very straight, dry, hi, my name is so-and-so. I went to such and such grade school. It was very, 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 very just really kind of bland. And after that first day, I thought, you know what? I really don't want my presentation to be to be as boring as that. And so I made the decision to try to come up with a way to present personal things about myself that were a little bit different. So I did. Now, one of the things that I thought a lot about at that time that I still remember is that it made me extra nervous to do things differently because it was kind of risky and I had no idea how things were going to pan out, and I risked making a fool of myself. So it was pretty scary for me, especially coming off of a really bad freshman year. But when it was my turn to give the presentation, I walked up there. I had a paper bag with me that I had some stuff in it, and I had a cassette player that I plugged in. And without a word, I pushed play on my little cassette player, and what started playing was a song by the Beatles, and it was a song from the Sgt. Pepper album, with a little help from my friends. And that was the song that was sung by Ringo on the Sgt. Pepper album. And while that was playing, I walked around the room and I had my paper bag and I reached in and I pulled out a penny and I gave a penny to every single student in my class, just without saying anything. And after I had distributed all of those pennies and I walked back, I turned off the music and I explained that that the Beatles were my favorite group, that I had most, if not all, of their albums, of their U.S. released albums, that Ringo Starr was the singer on that particular song, but he was not the main singer of the Beatles. But I picked that song because his birthday was July 9th, or July 7th, and mine was July 9th, and he was also the shorter Beatle, and I was one of the shorter boys in the class. So I just looked at them and I said, "Is that a coincidence?" And then I moved on. I then pulled out from the bag some individual props that cued me to talk about myself and to say certain things. Like I had something from the school I graduated from. It was like a letter that I had earned because it was a small school and everybody had to play every sport. Otherwise, we would never have a team. So I talked about myself in that way, and I didn't have any note cards because all the stuff in my bag cued me for what I would say. So I did it. I just talked about myself, covered most of the points the teacher asked, and then I reminded the students to look at the penny that I passed out. And what I pulled out was a penny from my bag, was a penny that was it was a Lincoln penny, but it had a carved face of John F. Kennedy on the penny. And I reminded the kids in my class that at that time there was this thing going around. There was this fad that was about saying how the similarities between Lincoln and JFK were beyond coincidence, that there was something supernatural about them. For example, both presidents were shot on a Friday and in the presence of their wives. Coincidence? Lincoln had a secretary named Kennedy who told him not to go to Ford's Theater, and Kennedy had a secretary named Evelyn Lincoln, and she warned him not to go to Dallas. Again, coincidence? Although both Oswald and Booth were killed before they could be put onto trial. Coincidence? I then after that finished up by listing some of the things that I had in common with the Beatles beyond what I had already said. And the very last thing I did was I had them look at their penny and say, notice when the penny was minted, the date on the year on the penny. And they were all 1962, which was the year that I was born. And I just ended by saying, coincidence? I remember having a big smile on my face. Well, I will tell you, my teacher thought it was great. She applauded. The kids in the class all gave me applauded louder than anybody else. And I felt so good about it. And afterwards, after class, one of the more popular guys in the class came up to me, and he just started asking me all these questions about how did I think about coming up with that idea? Where did it come from? I tried to throw in a few jokes, and he said, did I write them out in advance, or did I just make everything up? He was pretty fascinated by it. He also didn't have much experience with the Beatles, and he wanted to know more about that. So I over the next few weeks, I became really good friends with this person who ended up becoming one of the best friends I had in high school. And so I could say that was probably one of the most important storytelling events in my life because it was risky, but it turned out to have such positive outcomes. The new friend that I made encouraged me to go into theater, so I got involved in something at school I probably never would have gotten involved with, and it was the most satisfying and positive experience I had in an otherwise, typically pretty awful adolescent experience that is high school. So that was really an important thing that my storytelling. And I'm saying that to you because I'm hoping that you'll tell a very personal story. That's one of the principles of good storytelling, is that it is very personal. So I'm asking you to tell a personal story, and there are some other principles that I want you to consider as well, including the principle of using the story to help cue learners to what they're going to be learning how to do, or what they are going to be doing in the new learning experience. And so it definitely is part of my story and is modeling for you. So just a reminder, you have 3 things due between now and the final due date, which is Monday, December 9th at midnight. All the artifacts that you're going to create are going to be web pages. But again, the storytelling will be a video that you'll include a link of to. You'll put it in your YouTube space. And again, remember that I have a support guide for the information that I include about storytelling and about the introduction. And I hope that you find that useful if needed. And I do recommend, by the way, kind of like making some points about your story that you're going to say in the video. And again, it doesn't matter to me if you keep looking away. And it turns out I kept looking away, and rather than edit this, I'm not going to. I'm just going to post it as is and let you see that it's not that bad if it stays a little raw. So hope you enjoy this this final set of experiences. And as always, please let me know if you have any questions or comments about anything. All right, get to it.